Welcome to Fixation Station, the podcast about obsessions. Today we have the very funny LA comedian Krista Moy. Hi, Krista.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and you're here to talk about the OC.
I am, unfortunately. I say that because I have like a little bit of shame about it. I realize it's like it's problematic in its own ways, but it's near and dear to my heart. So I felt like I could talk for hours about this show.
And that's the point of the podcast. How did you discover the OC?
So I discovered the OC in college, giving away my age. It was freshman year of college. My roommate from Connecticut was like obsessed with the show. I'd never watched it before.
Mm-hmm.
And the first season had just completed and they were waiting to start the second season. She's like, you got to watch this show, The OC. And she identified as a Marissa Cooper. I don't know if you're familiar with the show.
That's the Misha Barton character, right?
Yeah, she like saw herself as a Misha Barton, which is like very classic for, white women in America. Like you're either a Misha or a Summer Roberts of Rachel Bilson. So I was like, all right, I have no idea what this show is. I've seen commercials, but it looks kind of dumb. And I got completely hooked from like she had this set on DVD and I completely could not stop watching. I was like I would come home from school and do my homework and just like put it on and like it was like nonstop. I think I binged it in like a week or something. It was like something insane. And then I was like, when is the second season coming out? She was like, not till November. And that was it. I was sold.
It's a good origin story. I was never a religious watcher. I probably have watched all of the first season.
The first season's the best season.
Yeah. And I remember thinking that's not what teenagers look like.
Not at all. Most of them, the only one that was actually a teenager was Misha Barton, and the rest of them were like 25. Mm-hmm. Which strange now looking back, like as a grown adult, like thinking about a like 16-year-old making out with like grown people, like 25-year-old men and up.
Yeah,
it's a little weird, but she was a professional.
It happens all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, I remember, I think I've actually told this story on the podcast already. My parents were very strict about television shows. And I remember I really liked that 70s show and they would like not let me watch like particular episodes or something. But I was like the same age as Mila Kunis. And
oh yeah,
I was just like, she's like on the show. She's my age. Why am I not allowed to like watch this show?
Yeah.
So for people who didn't watch the OC, we want to give us a brief synopsis.
Okay, so the OC is set in Orange County, California, which is a very like rich, affluent neighborhood of mostly white people. And it's by the beach, obviously. And this main character, Ryan Atwood, is from a town called Chino, which is like, I guess they make it to be this like dumpy town in the show, but it's actually not. And the town of Chino has asked the show like to stop writing such like like making it sound like such a hood or this like very poor town. They're like, we're actually like not that bad. So if you could please stop like, damaging our good name. But, he's from this like lower income town. Mm-hmm. And the pilot starts as him getting arrested for stealing a car with his older brother. And then his defense attorney, Sandy Cohen, which is my favorite, like one of my favorite characters in the show, comes to obviously defend him and basically rescues him from being abandoned by his mother after this happens and brings him to the OC, where he then meets Marissa Cooper, who's the girl next door, and falls in love with her immediately. And then he bonds with Sandy Cohen's son, Seth Cohen, and they become like, you know, this like best friend brother, like buddy love kind of relationship throughout the show. And the whole like premise is like Ryan is this like hothead kind of like outsider boy from across the tracks, you know, other side of the tracks kind of guy. And he's trying to fit into this community that is not very welcoming to him. And he keeps getting into trouble and running into these, like, you know, trying to not to get into fights, but, you know, he can't stop like wanting to beat up people that are being dicks to him. And then, outside of his story, it's like the most ideal characters that are white, rich people, but they have these dramatic, very, I guess, realistic problems from what I've heard of people in the OC. I've never really hung out with people in the OC, but apparently like there's a lot of these types of problems that they have. Like their dad's going to jail for like embezzling money and things like that. So
Yeah, I guess what I know from the OC is just like the Colin Hanks movie,
yeah.
Orange County, which I like. That movie is cute. The moral of the movie is so silly. I don't know.
The moral is ridiculous.
Have you spoiler alert, he wants to get into Stanford. I can't even remember why he can't. There's some kind of mistake happens and he doesn't get into Stanford.
I think they just reject him. He just didn't get in. And he's like, this is a mistake. Like, I wrote the most amazing essay. This can't be. Like, this isn't part of the plan.
And then he somehow he undoes that and gets into Stanford. And then, but then he decides, no, I need to stay close to my roots. I should go to Stanford. I should just hang out with like rich Republicans.
Yeah. I can't remember what exactly happens. I think it's like his parents end up getting it. Like his like stepdad or his mom or something, or is it his stepdad? I think his stepdad's in like a wheelchair. I don't know. Maybe it's his real dad. I think it's his real dad, like pulls some strings. So some real like, you know,
right.
That's some rich white people shit. Like,
yeah,
you know, nepotism at its best.
But
and then he decides I'm better than nepotism and I'm gonna stay home.
It's not that he's better than nepotism. It's that in order to be a good writer, you shouldn't go to a good college. I think,
yeah, something.
But anyway, so I know that movie, and then I know Dirty John, and then I don't follow Real Housewives of OC, but I do.
Have you ever watched Laguna Beach? I feel like that's like similar to.
Yeah, I did watch Laguna Beach. I went to college with a guy who went to that high school when that show was on, and he would use that as a pickup line, and it definitely like worked.
Wait, he would use that he was on.
He'd be like, "Hi, I'm
name redacted
from Laguna Beach," and people would be like, "Oh, like the television show?" And yeah.
Do you know Kristen Cavallari?
Yeah, and he'd be like, "Yeah." I don't think he knew them well, but I think he knew them. I shouldn't have said his real first name. He was not
it out.
We could, yeah, or what? He's not like a bad person or anything. It was just a funny.
Was he like an extra on the show? Who was he?
No, he had graduated the year before they started shooting, I think, because he was like a year ahead of me in college.
Okay.
Yeah, so he just like went to that high school. But yeah, a proximity to fame, people, I think that was.
Yeah, it was very of the time.
Right. But I do watch other Real Housewives and stuff. So I guess I am familiar via that.
Yeah, so that's funny that you mentioned that, because there's an OC podcast that I listen to, and some people have like credited Julie Cooper as being like the origin of like the Housewives series, that she was like the genesis of like that idea of like this, you know, the head of, the Newport group and like her Noopsies and this like community of like the Noopsies, or like the moms that just like did nothing and like planned like charity events, and then like she becomes later, spoiler alert, later in the season, she becomes like head of the Newport group, which is like Newport magazine, something like that. It's like a magazine that's like featuring these women and like their lifestyles, pretty much making a brand out of it. So some people say that Julie Cooper is the reason why there is like such a fixation with housewives.
I think, yeah, for sure that show would not have been called that if nothing else. Yeah. And then I know, did you listen to / watch Dirty John?
No, I never. What's Dirty John?
So it was a true crime podcast that was also, they made a television show starring Connie, Friday Night Lights.
I don't know her name at all.
Anyway, so it's just okay. It's a true story of a very successful woman who got romantically involved with a guy who is very obviously scamming her. And there was a podcast about this story. Yeah, it's so weird because I'm like, I don't want to spoil it, but it is also like a thing that happened.
It's based on a real event.
So the podcast was a production of the LA Times, and that the woman ends up okay and her daughters end up okay because they're like voices on the podcast.
They're telling the story.
So I guess that's not a spoiler. So it's not that all happens in the OC, and so this is a very she also seems to have like a real housewives sort of, I bet you know, an interior designer with like a bunch of beachfront properties, and
it's funny that we like call it the OC now too, because that never existed before the show, and I love that that's like a thing now, that people refer to Orange County as the OC. And like people from Orange County, I know a couple people from there, and they get really like, they're like, it's Orange County, it's not the OC. Like they're very, very adamant that this is incorrect, but like, how do you know like what people like, what's Orange County? Like, no, the OC, like that's the only thing people really recognize.
I just remember I remembered one other cultural reference to the concept of the OC, and then we'll talk about the show. But also I think the Rob Lowe character on The West Wing, he like when he left the show, on the character is like running as a Democrat in the OC, and like the whole point is that he's gonna lose because
it's all Republican,
it's all like rich white
Republican. Which is again like why I just want to like make it clear that I'm aware of this, that this is like what I'm obsessed with, and this does not reflect who I am as a person at all. I am not rich and I am not a Republican, but for some reason I just love this show so much.
Well, the show is also an exploration of it, because like the Peter Gallagher character Sandy is also not like originally from the area, right? He's
from the Bronx. He's very much like anti everything that the OC stands for. So he's like this perspective that's, I think, really necessary in this show to counteract,
and that's
how ridiculous
why he
these people
wants to take in Chad Michael Murray.
Ryan, what's his name? It's not Chad Michael Murray. You're close. It's Ben McKenzie, but basically
Chad Michael Murray was One Tree
Hill. But it's funny you say that, because I think Chad Michael Murray was originally supposed to audition for Ryan, but I think he might have done it and then ended up taking One Tree Hill.
Interesting.
And then so you're not far off. It's very close. Very, very close.
That was a type.
It was definitely a type. Were you more of a Ryan or a Seth person?
Yeah. See, this is the thing, is like in real life, I'm definitely much more of a Seth, who is the comic book nerd type
Yeah,
person.
very
But
funny guy.
yeah, but I was definitely into the Ben McKenzie.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I
I
don't
mean, you could
remember.
be both. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
that's fair.
like, let's be if either of them, I'm available. I'm not turning either of them down. But
If either of them come across this podcast, Ariel is, is available.
watch out, Leighton Meester.
Right?
But I also like, I definitely like, when I was a teenager, I definitely fell like victim to like the, you know, what a show would just be like, this person is a nerd. So
Yeah.
and it would just be like, oh, okay, so they're not. And then like you look back at like pictures of Adrian Brody and you're just like,
The Adam Brody.
Adam
Yeah. Adam Brody. I call him Adrian Brody. It's like so hard to
I mean, okay,
their names are way
very
too similar. Somebody should have thought about this and just renamed both of them because it's just too confusing.
I just want to be clear. Ben McKenzie, Adam Brody, Adrian Brody, all of them, the DMs are open. I guess
available.
Also
yeah.
Chad Michael Murray.
Yeah, throw him in there.
Throw him
in there. Why not?
Peter
Why not?
Gallagher too. What?
Oh yeah, definitely Peter Gallagher. Total zaddy.
Yeah. Oh. But yeah, so like I remember being like, there's no way that a Rachel Bilson type would ever date like an Adam Brody. And it's like,
yeah,
Adam
Brody was hot. Like he was like,
but like
it's like,
in
that's yeah.
The show just kept telling me that he wasn't appealing. Do you know what I mean?
But that's like the crazy thing I think about Hollywood. I feel like I've tweeted about this before, that like the like nerd or like unappealing like person in anything is actually like arguably very attractive in real life. Like
right.
Like extremely like hot people that are like meant to play these like nerd or like you know, oh
right.
gross, total goober type people. It's like,
yeah,
no.
But I definitely like as like a teenager would just be like, okay, you're telling me he's a nerd. Why are we? Let's get back to Ben McKenzie. Yeah, I don't think I ever knew that was his name. Ryan Dunn. Anyway, and yeah, so they live next door to Misha Barton, right?
Yeah.
And her father used to date.
Yeah, her father, played by Tate Donovan, who's like a 80s, 90s like teen heartthrob, now like playing this dad. He used to date Seth's mom, Kirsten, and they still have like this weird like chemistry that, you know, slow smoldering chemistry between them, even though he's obviously married to Misha Barton's mom, Julie Cooper, who's like starts off as like the show villain and then like slowly becomes like very likable. And she was actually not supposed to be on the show for that long, but she was so good and such an important character that they ended up keeping her for the entire show.
And then how did Rachel Bilson she was just Misha Barton's best friend. She's
Misha Barton's best friend, and also Seth Cohen's like school like boyhood crush. Like he's had a crush on her since like the age of 10 or something like that. And so he's just like, you know, quietly lusting after her in the shadows of his like geeky life. And she has no idea who he is in the beginning.
And spoiler alert, they end up together, or they date.
Spoiler alert, they end up getting married. If you haven't watched the show, like it's been like 20 years, like you should have watched it by now. I hope we're not spoiling anything.
Yeah, so I as you can tell, I'm like pretty familiar with like the early seasons. I don't think I watched yet. I know that the Misha Barton died.
She dies in end of season 3.
Yeah.
Which was a big relief to me. She's like my least favorite character on the show, even though like emotionally I probably am like more like her than I would like to admit. Like I was a very angsty, unstable teen, but God, she's so annoying. She's like the worst girlfriend, and like she's a really bad friend, and just like they just do such a good job at making her unlikable.
And I mean, but it's also a classic thing of like she quit the show, right?
I think so. I think she wanted to quit, and so they're just like, okay, like I guess we'll just kill. Like they could have done anything. Like they could have had her go away to somewhere, but I mean, they didn't have to kill her in like a tragic car accident. But I think even the writer Josh Schwartz says that like he realizes that was like a bit dramatic. And like it didn't have to be that way, but like I don't know, that's just what they decided to do.
She was huge at the time, but I feel like now Adam Brody and Rachel Bilson both like work much more than she does. But
I think probably Adam Brody works like the most out of anyone from the show.
It's also so hard to tell in Hollywood.
Yeah, who's actually working, because she has done work. Like I looked up her IMDb and she's got like some small credits, but I don't think she's done anything like major.
Right, but like it's also like she probably has enough money that she doesn't have to work, so maybe she just doesn't want to.
I think she's like dabbled in like theater, like that's sort of something because she's from London, I want to say, or
wait, she's
UK
English
somewhere. She's like I think she's both. She's probably like a dual citizen, but I think she, like when she was in her youth, she like grew up there for some point, and that's why I think that's why she talks kind of it's like a strange accent.
She has the
unplaceable
transatlantic accent.
Yeah, that like Lindsay Lohan has now adapted.
And then the other thing I know about the later seasons of the OC is I was a tri-delt in college, and
really,
yeah, I know it was very different at my school than most, but we would get like emails from chapter being like, we're not like how they're depicted on the OC, and I was like, I guess they're characters on the OC and tri-delt.
Are there tri-delts? Oh, maybe. I want to say, okay, I think I want to say that is about like when maybe season 4, when Summer goes to college and then she like runs into people that are in sororities, I want to say. I don't know. I really don't know exactly what that's referencing, but
I will say because I only ever got the emails that there was like very little context, and then I would like ask people who watch the show and they'd be like, what are you
it's not clear to me what that's referencing, but
I don't know if this is still the rule, but we'd also get like a lot of letters from National about how we shouldn't call ourselves tri-delts, we should say tri-delta, and that somehow better.
What? It's like Orange County versus the OC.
Yeah,
we're not the OC. We're not Orange County. Stop referring to us as tri-delts.
Yeah. Do you think that they killed her in a violent way because they were angry with the actress, or?
From what I've heard, there was definitely like tension between, I don't know if it was like the writers or just like the crew. I don't know who had tension with her, but like I can imagine that she was a little bit like just going through a lot and like maybe had some anger or some angst that was very appropriate for her age. She was like, I think like 17 or 18 when she probably quit, which is super young.
Yeah.
Like super, super young, younger than anyone in the cast. And she was such a it girl. Like she was in all of those like Paris Hilton, Lindsay Lohan, Britney Spears, like paparazzi kind of parties. Yeah. And I feel like she was probably pushed to do a lot more than the other cast members were. And like there was a lot demanded of her. So like maybe that's like what created some of the tension, that she was just like maybe like hard to work with, or I don't know. Don't quote me on this, but but there was probably some things said about her that were unfavorable. So yeah, it might have been a reflection of just like, all right, fuck you, like we're just gonna kill your character in a car accident.
Yeah, I mean, because they like to they're still leaving the door open for Samantha on sex, and
I know there's that. That's like the other, she's like the likable Marissa Cooper. But she chose not to do the show.
Yeah, I really respect her, actually, because I think the whole thing is just so funny that like they thought she was being a prima donna, and she's like, no, I just don't want to.
And like, in my opinion, I feel like the show is far less without her. Like, I love I love that they're trying to do this whole diversity thing. I mean, I don't know if I love it, but it feels a little bit forced in some instances, but it is great to see like diversity, but also like Samantha was so necessary in the dynamic.
Diversity with
Samantha. Like
that's not, and I think some of their diversity choices didn't. I think they the Miranda character to me is unrecognizable now, but
yeah, it's just Cynthia Nixon.
Yeah,
clearly.
You were just like I don't know how to
Cynthia Nixon into a character.
Do you watch The Gilded Age?
I watched one episode of The Gilded Age.
I do not think she's good on that show.
No, it's really awkward.
It's also just, it's so funny that like she wanted to be the governor of New York, and then she was like, fine, I'll just go back to being an actor.
I guess I'll just go back to getting finger banged in a kitchen. Like what?
The reaction to that event from Carrie's perspective. For people who don't watch Ed Just Like That, Carrie has a podcast, and the host of that podcast is non-binary and a comedian named Che Diaz, and they always refer to Che Diaz as Carrie's boss, which is very funny to me because it's like not how podcasts like.
Yeah, and they seem more like co-workers, or like
they work on one project of many together. But anyway,
yeah, and Carrie is still very much like a independent writer, it seems. So
they're co-freelance. But occasionally Carrie will be like, my boss said this. But anyway, and Miranda leaves or cheats on her husband with Che Diaz,
Carrie's boss.
But while Carrie has just had an operation, and Miranda is supposed
like a hip replace. What is it? A hip surgery?
Some kind of surgery. That was the whole thing.
Something where she can't get up without help.
Yeah.
Right.
And
bedridden.
Yeah. And Miranda is supposed to be there helping her, and instead is having sex.
Tequila shots
in full view of Carrie. And Carrie has to pee. Like, Carrie wakes up, she has to pee. She sees Miranda having sex and then getting finger banged. And
and then pee. Doesn't she pee in a cup or something, or like a bottle?
She pees in a water bottle, and then she like spills it on herself. And Miranda could not give less of a fuck. Like,
very bad friend. Like, in this case, she is the Misha Barton of the show.
Anyway, this show is not good. I like I think it's good for diversity. I think probably they should have, I don't know what their writer room looked like, but I would bet it was pretty old and pretty white. Like,
I would say so.
So I think there was probably a lack of nuance in understanding certain things.
Fair. And I feel like they just like poured in a lot of be this diverse. Like there's too many characters now, like in my opinion. Like it's too much.
Well, yeah,
in the original show there was just like the 4,
right,
and then like branched out to like their separate people, but now it's just like there's all these storylines. Like what? I can't follow.
Yeah, and one of the main ancillary characters did die during filming, so I do think that's
was it Stanley?
Yeah,
His name?
Blanking on his real name, but yeah.
Future Ariel here. We had minor technical difficulties and had to take a break, and then when we reset, this is what happened.
So the OC, let's just start with the OC. So who were you? Were you a Ryan or what was Adam's character?
Seth.
Okay, were you an Adam or a Seth?
Yeah, right. So it's funny. I was hoping you would ask. I was definitely like more of a Seth. Like I thought I like, until I met my fiance, I was just like walking around looking for my Seth Cohen and just like wanting that like funny guy. And I remember like the guy I was dating at the time was not very funny at all, and I would get like angry at him for like not being funny. And like not being more like Seth, and I even like told him to like grow out his hair, and like he was just like, why? I'm like, cuz like you like can you curl it somehow? Like I don't know, just like make it. And it like started my obsession with like curly haired men. But I did have a sex dream about Ben McKenzie once. It was like we were in his pool house, and it was a hot and steamy sex dream. And I woke up like very like, whoa, like that's weird. I didn't realize I was even attracted to Ryan at all. Like that was weird. You would think it would be Seth, but you know, maybe Seth, it was like more so the personality thing. And like, I don't know, like he's still like very attractive. Like Adam Brody's very attractive as well. Yeah. But it was very weird to like have that sex dream about Ben McKenzie. And then when I was in LA last time I lived here, I was waitressing and Ben McKenzie walked in, and immediately like I thought about the sex dream I had of him. I don't know if like you have sex like I have quite a few sex dreams. Like it's just, you know, a wild imagination. And like when you have a sex dream about somebody and then see them in person, it's like awkward after.
Yeah,
just, like,
for sure.
Hey, like, do they know? Like, I don't know. It's just this like weird. So it was like, that was like the awkwardest thing that ever like happened to me with anything OC related, was like running into Ben McKenzie and like serving him food as I'm like imagining, like remembering this dream in my head of like being hot and sweaty with him in the pool house. So yeah.
Interesting. Are you okay?
My candle just went out, and I just want to make sure that it doesn't make the alarm go off, because okay. I did have a candle burning and it just went out on its own. I don't know. It's like this podcast has some
much lighting
right now. Yeah.
So you had a sex dream and you ran into him.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was embarrassing. Do you think he probably just thought you knew he was famous? He probably didn't. Yeah,
I'm sure like everywhere he goes, there's people that are like, oh, Ryan, like it's Ryan Atwood. But I was pretty cool. Like I didn't do anything that weird. Like I've like, you know, had my brush with celebrities like quite a bit as a waitress, and like I feel like I was like pretty cool about it. And he was on a date too, or I don't know, with a female friend, so I was like, let me just leave him alone. Of course, hey, Ryan. How's Seth?
Oh god. So he had the romance with Misha Barton, and then like after she died, did he go to college? What was the deal? What happened?
Yeah, so basically like after he got over, him and like Julie were in this weird cohorts together trying to like get the guy who like killed her, pretty much like ran them off the road, Volchek. They were trying to like get him killed. And Sandy, obviously being like the white savior that he is, was like rushed in and and was like, don't, you're better than this, Ryan, and helped him figure out on his own that like he doesn't want to ruin his life by killing somebody in revenge for his.
And why was Volchek
girlfriend's
running
death
them
or
off
whatever.
the road?
Because Volchek is this guy that was like in love with Marissa that she was kind of dating for a bit, but then, like on and off again, very like tumultuous relationship because he's like unhinged. And then she like didn't want to see him anymore, and he like couldn't handle that and was just like, if I can't have you, no one can, kind of energy. And he didn't mean to kill her, I guess, but he just like lost control as prime example of toxic masculinity. Yeah, he goes to jail. He ends up going to jail. He turns himself in because he like can't live with himself. But it's just classic case of like man can't handle his emotions, so he acts out and runs a woman off the road.
I mean, it happens. It like
classic.
It does happen.
Classic.
Yeah. So okay. So after Ryan doesn't murder that man, what?
Then after that, things sort of like start to calm down a little bit in the OC, and then they introduce a character called Taylor, Taylor Townsend, which is like she's like supposed to replace Marissa, but like I love her. She's like one of my favorite characters. She's a very like nerdy, bookish, like quirky, weird, neurotic sort of character, which I love.
I love a neurotic.
Very much like, yeah, she's like has like these like cute little obsessions that like go a little out of hand at times, and yeah, she's always like plotting schemes to like get Ryan to like her, and it's really I love the character. She's really funny. She's way more likable than Marissa because she has a sense of humor. So love her.
Cool.
Yeah.
And who plays her?
And then like I don't know what the actress's name is. I have no idea. She's not as memorable, I guess, or famous. She's not as famous as Misha Barton. I don't want to say memorable. She's not as famous as Misha Barton.
For people listening, like Misha Barton was like very famous.
She was like one of the most famous. Yeah. Like she was extremely back in the day of like Us magazine, or like those just like trashy paparazzi magazines that you would like read in the beauty salon or whatever. Like I don't know, do they still make those? I don't know. Like the stars are just like us. Like it's literally just like pictures of celebrities like drinking lattes and walking to their car and shit like that. Like it's just those magazines were everywhere, and they were filled with Misha Barton.
She's like Lindsay Lohan, Paris Hilton.
Lindsay Lohan, Paris Hilton. Even like I think Miley Cyrus might have been a little bit later, but like definitely Britney Spears was like in with that genre. I feel like they hung out. Yeah, for sure. All the people that you read, that you hear about in the Britney documentary of like getting trashed by the media.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, because it's just I don't know. It's always so funny what people. I feel like she doesn't come up that often. I feel like probably people in like their early 20s have no idea who we're talking.
Yeah, I'm sure. But she was literally on everything, and like I think she even did like fashion, like modeling, like runway, and everybody wanted a piece of Misha Barton. Like she like skyrocketed. It was pretty wild. But I was more of I loved Summer. I wanted to be more like, I mean, I'm like a short brunette, so I guess maybe that's why. But Summer's character was like way more likable to me because she actually was like, she had a lot of sage wisdom. As I've watched back the show, I watched the show like twice during the pandemic, which is a little embarrassing to admit.
No, it's not.
Yeah, I definitely feel like Summer is actually pretty smart for how dumb she is written in the beginning. Like they begin to unfold that she's actually a very wise character. Yeah.
And it doesn't take her too long to like figure out that Seth is like viable romantically or like a good partner.
Yeah, there's definitely like a chemistry between them for a long time before they actually get together. But yeah,
Right. Well,
she's
because
just
you
like
gotta.
wrapped up in her own like shallowness.
But she overcomes it.
She overcomes it, and that's like, it's like so satisfying. It's really satisfying to always see like the nerd get the hot girl, even though he's like we said, he's very hot himself. But I guess that's like a narrative people love to see.
Yeah, although I will say I am kind of tired of it. But
it is tired. It is tired
I
for
don't
sure.
watch, I don't even watch the show anymore. I only watched the first season. But did you watch Sex Education?
Yeah, I did.
And like the second I was like, oh, we're just doing this again, where
Yeah.
like, because
It's sending men the wrong message that like that like they should be pining after like the hottest girl in school, and it's like in reality that's not
right, and it's
really.
like, it's just like, if looks are not that important, which is like I think what people are going for when they write that kind of narrative, right, is that like,
Yeah.
beauty is only skin deep or whatever. But it's like, why then?
But why
Why are they
only?
why are we rewarding them with a hot woman?
Yeah, exactly. It's an old trope back to the John Cusack days, those like 80s movies.
I mean, I think John Cusack is like very hot.
Yeah, but he's not like the jockey type. He's definitely like the emo like nerdier.
It is also like, it's funny, like Misha Barton, she was kind of like the last, well, not the last, because I'm sure it'll come back in style eventually, but like the beauty standards have like slightly shifted, and she's very
Definitely.
very like rail
wafy. Yeah, she's got like that like waif, and now like the ideal body type is like butt injections, like that. You don't see those like skinny girls anymore. Like, they all like do squats and have like fat ass. It's true.
It is true. It's also so funny, as to me, I feel like when that like shift happened, to me it was like I saw the Matrix. Actually, it was more with eyebrow. Like, I can make this point clear with eyebrow. Like, what
eyebrows is a great,
like, okay, when we were young, we were still young, but when we were children, eyebrows were supposed to be so thin,
painfully thin,
and then they were like, no, we're growing them out, we're making them huge,
fill them in.
And when that happened, to me, I was like, oh, they're just making this shit up, and I don't need to worry too much about it.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's funny to me, and like now apparently there's some inklings that slightly thinner is coming back in style, and I see women my age freaking out about it like again.
Yeah,
it's like, you don't have to play along.
Yeah, like you don't have to seesaw on these trends.
And it literally, one is not better than the other.
It's like the pant leg, like now it's like not cool to have like this skinny, and it's like, who cares?
Yeah, I mean, like, jeans are like a little bit annoying because like it affects what like you can buy a little bit, but like eyebrows, like you can do whatever you want to them. But like, again, so like when the waif went out and the Coke bottle shaped woman came in,
Kim Kardashian rolled in.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, like literally it doesn't matter. Like they just want to I just feel like the powers that be just want to shift up beauty standards every 10 years so nobody feels too comfortable.
Exactly, just to make women uneasy just a little bit.
Yeah.
With just whatever they have.
Yeah, nobody should feel of their body.
Okay, I have a question. Do you think that the fat ass originated from J-Lo, or do you think it was more from Kim Kardashian?
I think,
or the Coke bottle shape? rather.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was also a little bit ethnic. Like, I think
Yeah.
I think the heroin chic, as it was called, I don't think was in like every ethnic group.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it also depends. But I don't think we'd have Kim Kardashian without J-Lo.
Yeah. That's what I feel like too.
But J-Lo was also like would do like this weird thing where she'd talk about how she was like really self-conscious about it, and it'd be like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's pretty front and center in most.
Yeah. And I love that she was like the ass of like the early 2000s that like everyone talked about when like Beyonce was walking around with a wave like nice like like her butt was just as big, and
Right.
like I don't know if it was necessarily as talked about or as like
Right.
shocking as like J-Lo's, and I've never really understood that.
That is yeah. I mean, like there was, Bootylicious, but yeah. But yeah, J-Lo's ass was like definitely.
It was like a brand. Like, didn't she insure it for some money?
Yeah. And then I remember like, cause like, yeah, I remember reading in people like one article, she'd be like, oh, I was like afraid that nobody was like gonna ask me to like prom. And then like,
because my butt was too juicy.
I mean, she's such a beautiful woman.
It's insanely beautiful still.
Right, but like for example, I think somebody was recently tweeting, because Seinfeld's on Netflix now, so like Gen Z are watching it, and there's like apparently a plot line where like Elaine is mad that somebody said she had a big ass, and like they were like these like 20-year-olds being like, it's so unrealistic, and it's like, no. It was like, and again, I do think it is like a white person thing to like not want an ass.
Be like, my ass is fat.
Right. But I also remember reading it in like, because like also exercise trends change. So like in like the early 2000s, they were, because like women like were told like not to do strength training.
Women were like, you must be a skeleton.
Yeah, because like you wouldn't want muscles, right?
Yeah,
muscles are bad.
You want your bones to stick out as much as possible from
and
all
then
areas.
I remember like there was an article, it was probably like signaling the shift where they were like, it's like good for your health
to like have strength.
But like in the article they were like, but if you're like worried about your butt, you like absolutely don't have to do squats.
Avoid the squats if your butt is too
like it's like
shapely.
It's like, yeah, like we get it, it's okay, we're you can get strong. And now like squats are literally like all
that's all I do.
Yeah.
The only part of my exercise routine. The law now.
Yeah. And apparently, like, again, the people who are watching this they're like some of the Kardashians seem to be getting like their BBLs reversed, and so people are like, there's gonna be a new
the waif is coming back,
or I don't know, but I just want to be, you don't have to do it.
Yeah,
it's optional.
Your body is great as it is. We're discussing bodies very objectively from a cultural standpoint, but we accept all sizes and shapes.
I mean, and I just like, your body's gonna do what your body's gonna do.
I find it like hilarious that bodies shapes can trend just because everybody's body is it is what it is to a certain extent. Like you can try to manipulate it as much as you can, but like it's gonna be what it's gonna be at the end of the day.
And like you should exercise because it like feels good and makes you like feel nice. Anyway, and, like, girl power.
Yes.
But yeah, like for example, I don't understand how like I can't imagine, like I really like the movie Legally Blonde, but I feel like an 18-year-old watching that would be so confused.
Yeah. So you can't just get into Harvard by making a video in your bikini?
That's not even
What?
but like,
Why not, Ariel?
but there's the plot, the trial hinges around, spoiler alert for Legally Blonde.
Yeah.
But she works with like an exercise guru who's been accused of shooting. And it turns out that her alibi is that she was getting liposuction and she doesn't want to reveal it. You're very quiet.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just think they'd be watching that and they'd be like, an exercise guru wants her ass to be smaller. Like,
yeah, like liposuction.
yeah.
For where? Don't you want
for your butt?
What? Why would you want a smaller butt?
Yeah, people did.
That wouldn't make sense.
But again, it's all just whatever.
It's all
whatever.
of the time.
Yeah.
Very, very of the time.
Yeah. And I also think it is kind of funny that because Leighton Meester and Rachel Bilson were certainly also of a type.
Definitely.
Like extremely beautiful women who are supposed to be like insecure because their hair was
yeah. They're like the less desirable ones that like aren't lusted after for some reason.
And it is, I do, because Adam Brody, I actually haven't checked. Is Adam Brody still married to Leighton Meester? Or are they?
I think so. I think they are. Yeah, but they're very much like the same archetype of women.
Yeah, no, it is sort of like,
the like funny ball buster type, like, sassy.
They're the smarter one because their hair is
smarter. Yeah, it happens that way. That's
where your brains are.
It's science in your hair color. Where it is. Yeah, definitely. Is there anything else OC related we should talk about? I mean, like, I think something worth mentioning for me, maybe it's a little off topic. It's on topic of OC, but like, I just want to mention that the OC is the reason why I moved to California. And it's very embarrassing to admit that, but I just want to go back in history and say that is like a large, like watching the OC with my roommates like every week and like living in like the cold, like frigid weather of New York. I was just like, what am I doing with my life? I need to be in California. And then I transferred schools to California. And it was mostly because of the OC. And I didn't really admit it to myself until years later. But
oh wow. The OC changed the course of your life.
It was that influential for me. Like, I was like, I need to go find my Seth Cohen. He's out there in California.
Which is so funny because he's not a very Californian archetype.
No, he ends up moving to the East Coast.
Like, he's definitely much more of a New Yorker.
He's definitely much more of a New Yorker, but I don't know, sort of like set up my whole, like, that's kind of how I feel being in LA, is like a New Yorker, or this like, East Coast vibe, always wearing black, here in LA. It's very much I am my own Seth Cohen, is what I've discovered.
Oh, that is a good moral. The
Seth Cohen I was looking for was actually within me all along.
Yeah, maybe we are all our own Seth Cohens.
I would like to think so, but now I like live by the beach, and I'm like realizing that a lot of the areas in the show that they film are like around here.
Oh wow.
I'm just like, wow, I have really incepted the OC into my life in really weird, real ways.
I love it. And what do you think? Yeah. Like, so there's definitely like some class stuff happening in the OC.
Yeah, I've actually never like hung out in the OC that often.
No, I'm at the show.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. In my opinion, like the OC has it all in terms of like writing and a very like compelling storyline. It has everything but diversity. Like that's the main thing the show is lacking, is like, yeah, they have like Ryan's characters, like the poor guy from like but he's still, a blue-eyed white man that's like very like
so hot.
So hot, very like, other than his financial status, like he doesn't have a lot like against him in society. So, but yeah, they do discuss class a lot in there. And there are characters like, I think Teresa, his like childhood love is Hispanic, I believe. So there is some diversity in there.
Surreal, real expression. But it's okay.
And also like the doctor, I think like Marissa's like psychiatrist, and like the school dean is like, they are people of color as well. So there is some, but
it's tough because they make a lot of television shows that only have white people in them. So at a certain point,
definitely, and that's how the OC is. Like,
yes,
and I feel like that's
true.
It's a very fair representation.
It's not like Girls where they're like hanging out in New York City and everybody's white. Yeah,
everybody's white, and they're like, we're in Brooklyn, but I can't see anybody but white people. Weird how that is. Yeah.
Also, Sex in the City, which again, we're talking about them rectifying.
Exactly. But like when I was listening to the OC podcast, they had on the writer of Entourage, and like he had like a kind of fair point of like his writing and how Entourage was like very attacked for being like a very white show and not having a lot of diversity. But his like point was that that's kind of how Hollywood was at the time.
Right.
And so it's not really his fault for writing like an accurate representation of how Hollywood was. And it's not like purposely to like box out people of color, but
Yeah,
diverse.
I mean, like also it's like based on Mark Wahlberg, right? Like
I think so.
He's not exactly known for like embracing people of all color. I don't know if
I think he's like a little problematic in general.
He beat up a Vietnamese man. I don't know if people and I think what was almost certainly,
wasn't it recently too, like within the past couple years? No, I thought it was,
maybe there was something
maybe
recent.
I think I just heard about it recently.
No, but it was a while ago. But I think it was, people have claimed that it wasn't racially motivated, but it was almost certainly racially motivated. And then sorry, there was a rumor that he like damaged this man's eyesight. But it turns out that no, he just beat up somebody who had bad eyesight. But it's not like,
but that
it's
that's not really like the not great.
Like, I mean, he didn't disable him. He just beat up a disabled person. And my point being, again,
he didn't make him disabled. He was already disabled when he found him, when he beat him up. That's awful. Oh my god.
To be clear, so like I also like, did you watch The Handmaid's Tale?
Yeah, I did.
See,
I haven't watched the newest like season
neither
or two, but I watched like the first 2 seasons.
They also made the choice to make it sort of like race blind for diversity, but it is like, if the Christian right takes over, it's not going to be race blind. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It is tough, I think. But yeah, the OC is like a white place. You are also not white, I think. Maybe
I'm half white.
Yeah.
There's that, but I'm Asian, and most people read me as Asian. So
Right. I just want
yeah. For people listening, I identify as an Asian woman, and I also grew up very poor. So I am
again,
none
you're
of the
allowed
things
to.
that are depicted in this show. That is not
I'm
why I
white
like
and
it.
very privileged, but I
Yeah.
think that Krista is allowed to like this.
Yeah, and like I've like taken a lot of reflection on like why I like this show so much, and it's not necessarily because like that I like love this rich dynamic, this lifestyle. You know, of course there is a part of me that as a 35-year-old woman I still wish that I were adopted by Sandy Cohen and put in their pool house. Like that is still a sort of real fantasy of mine. But I think like the deeper like love for the show is just how good the writing is, and like Sandy Cohen's character really is like an anchor for like just creating this like almost like modern day fairy tale of like, you know, this Cinderella story for this like poor boy that like has like a really bad relationship with his mom, and like she abandons him, and you know, like I didn't have a great relationship with my parents, and like, you know, it's sort of like this story of like new beginnings and like hope. There's like so much hope and like fantasy, and just like it's just a really fucking satisfying show to watch, because you just get to see all these things that like you're really rooting for Ryan, and you're really rooting for like all of the characters really at the end. Like you see they go through their problems, but like yeah, they're rich but they still have problems, and the fact that they're white, like I don't know, like it doesn't bother me enough to not like the show. They're like these rich white people from a lifestyle that I could never understand, but like it's just so good.
Yeah. I'm giving you permission to like these.
Yeah, I know. I'm like I'm aware that like people have issues with it, but it's such a Josh Schwartz is an incredible writer, and the fact that he wrote it at 26 is like, it blows my mind. Like what the fuck was I doing at 26? Not writing the OC. That's what I can tell you. Not doing that.
Yeah, that's wild. Shall we end it there?
Yeah, okay. I think so.
So any like social media you would like to plug?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at Krista.Moy on Instagram, and then Twitter is Moy Tweets World, and TikTok, I believe I changed my handle now to also be Krista.Moy. I'm rebranding.
Okay, I'll include them all in links in the show notes.
Okay, cool.
Thank you so much, Krista. This is so much fun.
Thank you so much for having me. I love talking about the OC, so this was a treat.
I hope you had fun.
Ariel here. After we recorded this, Krista realized she hadn't talked about the music of the OC, which is also really important to her. So we hopped back on the mic to talk about the music of the OC, and that conversation will be available as an episode of Fixation Vacation on my Patreon, patreon.com/Ariel Dundas, sometime within the next week or so. So, have a great day!